They believed they had been forsaken by the galaxy. Then the sky cracked open and we answered. Before we get into it, I need your help for just 1 second. Drop a quick hello below. It tells the algorithm you're one of us, and help share this story with more people who need to hear it. Let's begin. The first defense spire didn't just fall. It dissolved. A percussive roar tore through the eternal twilight of Alera's final bastion, Valoran. Sheets of ancient ice, sharp as crystal knives, sheared away from the shuddering towers and plummeted toward the domes below. Crimson fire streaked the bruised horizon, staining the perpetual dusk. On the central command spire, General Vorin stood motionless, his silver gray fur dusted with powdered frost and falling cinders. Tall and lean for an Ellerin, his thermal armor, etched through the old, spiral sigils of Forgotten Covenant, barely contained the faint, faltering glow of his command insignia. Beneath his feet, the structure groaned. "Report on the southern barrier," he said, his voice unervingly calm. Lieutenant Colin, his youthful face markings pulsing with anxiety, scanned the fractured console. Barrier integrity at 19%. Breach in Sector 4. The Krail are forming up for a final orbital descent. We have maybe men. A silent, searing light consumed the rest of his words. A lance of raw energy, fired from the heavens, struck the dome's heart. It detonated inward, then outward. The shock wave ripped the eastern observation wall into a storm of screaming shrapnel. Vorin threw himself over Colin as diamond-hard ice slashed through the air where his head had been. Across Valoran, the chorus of sirens choked into silence as power died, district by district. Signal evacuation. Vorin ordered, pulling Colin upright. Open all deep tunnels. Everyone goes underground. Now. The conclave hasn't. Colin started. The conclave is ash. Vorin cut him off. They died with a shield. Below, their city was a masterpiece of ruin. Elegant white arches melted under relentless fire. Spires toppled in graceful, tragic arcs over avenues where clusters of slender Ellerins fled. Their long coats, once pristine, were matted and burned. Then the voice arrived. It vibrated through every surviving speaker, cold, mechanized, absolute. "This is Over-Commander Draxus of the Krail Armada. Your defiance is concluded. Disarm, submit, or witness the cleansing of this world." In high orbit, the noose tightened. 6 Krail dreadnoughts, shaped like barbed talons and sheathed in overlapping plates of black chitinous alloy, settled into position. They bristled with weapon spines that radiated a sickly violet aura. The Krail themselves were nightmares given bipedal form, hulking, armored in segmented carapace, their faces hidden behind visors of pulsating crimson lenses. Their breath, even over comms, was a wet, rasping drag. Inside the buckling city, Krail assault teams advanced with terrifying efficiency. Plasma cutters vaporized bulkheads. Squads in obsidian armor stormed through the gaps, their shock rifles firing methodical, binary-coded bursts. The last organized Ellerin line broke near the Grand Concourse when Captain Solon took a direct hit. He evaporated mid-command, leaving only rising steam and silence. Beneath the city, in the deep tunnels carved ages ago to shelter another species, panic was a living thing. Elder Mila, who had once tended the human young during the Long War, now guided 60 terrified souls by the light of her glowing staff. "Stay together. Follow the guide runes," a volunteer yelled. But the ancient network was overwhelmed. A concussive blast from above found Tunnel Gamma. The ceiling screamed, then collapsed. The sound of crushing rock was followed by a much worse silence. On the surface, Vorin's command post received only ghosts of sound. Sector 5 is gone. Plaza overrun. Children in the lower vaults. Colin turned from the silent console. No one is answering, General. Vorin closed his eyes. The silence after the ultimatum was a weight. The Orion Accords had buried their pleas in bureaucracy. The wider galaxy had turned its back. No allies stirred. No signals returned. So be it. Vorin activated the final beacon on his wrist guard. Not a call for aid. A record. A testament. If this was the end of the Ellerin people, they would not vanish unseen. The beacon pulsed a soft, lonely blue once, twice, then went dark. "No one is coming," Colin whispered. Voran didn't reply. He looked at the dying skyline, flames devouring ice, and drew his sidearm, not to command, but to make a final stand. In the tunnels below, the last lights winked out. Above, the Krail fleet shifted into cleansing formation. A truth, cold and absolute, settled over every soul left in Valoran. They were alone. The galaxy had turned its back. We had not. While final whispers faded beneath the ice, other eyes watched. Commander Elias Rook stood on the silent observation deck of Outpost Theta, a listening station buried in the airless crust of a dead moon. His arms were clasped behind him, his gaze fixed on the tactical hologram. Red icons clustered above Alara. The Krail were moving to purge. "Full spectrum intercept on Krail command channels," he said, his voice a low gravel. "Filter 4 sterilization and ground sweep. I want a timeline." "Decrypt's coming through now, sir," Analystchen replied. "They've accelerated the timeline. It's a full liquidation." Rook gave a single, slow nod. He'd seen this pattern before. Not in reports, but in memory. 3 decades past. He wasn't a commander then. His family, Lena and their boy, Finn, were on Haven 7 when it was scrubbed from the star charts. The silence afterward was a void. Then a smuggled data burst. Flagged from a frozen world he'd never heard of, Alara, the Ellerins neutral and reclusive, had opened their hidden vaults. They'd save his family. For no reason but kindness. Agent Kale approached, datapad in hand. "New intercept, Commander. Krail ground forces are entering the old tunnel networks. They're calling it Scorch Protocol." Rook took the pad. He read, then calmly, "Initiate Project Goliath. Omega-level clearance." "Sir, that authorization requires. Do it." Far away, in the crushing gravity well of a training facility, Sergeant Major Kalen Jax Jansen lowered his rifle. Steam rose from the barrel. "Time?" he asked. 48 under par, Corporal V said, grinning. "What's your secret, sir?" Jax's half-smile vanished as a solitary, priority alert glowed on his wrist display. He tapped it. A scrambled, guttural transmission filtered through. Cleanse operation. Alara. Total eradication authorized. He froze. A secondary feed activated. Images. Ellerin spires falling. Civilians scattering in the snow. He knew those tunnels. He had been that scared, frozen child, pulled from certain death by fur-covered hands that asked for nothing. They had hidden him, fed him, given him a future when his own species had been rendered fugitives. He never forgot. He never could. The Treaty of Orion had bought a shaky peace with human passivity. The Krail had written the terms. The Ellerins, who had never been at the table, were now slated for erasure, a sacrifice for a lie. Jax locked his armor. "Prep my ship," he said to a confused officer. "We're not following protocol today." Aboard the stealth corvette Shadow's Hand, Jax's face resolved on a secure channel to Commander Rook. "I saw the feed," Jax said. "I wonder when you'd call," Rook replied. "They're burying the past. Every witness." "What's the play?" Rook's screen lit with dormant fleet signatures. "We don't ask permission. We remind them that some debts outlive treaties." Jax nodded. "I'll ready the teams." Silent insertion. "No flags." "No mercy," Rook finished. Buried deep, Outpost Theta awoke. Rook stood before console sealed for a generation. Dust motes danced in the sudden cold light. "Commander Rook, authorization Sigma 9. Activate Avalanche." A chime echoed in the deep, across the fringe, in tombs hidden inside barren moons. The same sequence triggered. Rails thawed. Blast doors, frozen shut for decades, groaned open. Ships stirred. Human warships. Names struck from official registers. Leviathan, Behemoth, Colossus, Juggernaut. 10 kilometers of matte black hull and magnetized plating, sensor-absorbent, emission cold. They woke not with a roar, but with silent mechanical resurrection. The stars would not see them coming. On the bridge of the Leviathan, First Officer Reyes monitored the sink. All battle groups loaded and primed. Shield cycling. Weapons hot. Maintained total blackout. Rook said, watching the holographic fleet coalesce. Let them skin ghosts. Aboard the Shadow's hand. Jack stood in the drop bay. Rows of black insertion pods awaited launch. You know the score, he said to the 40 armor Marines before him. No anthems. No politics. We drop clean. We move fast. We get them out. Sergeant Holt, his second, slammed a mag into his rifle. Insertion vector puts us right on top of the old shelter districts. The tunnels should still hold. Should? A Marine asked. Jax looked at him. We'll make them hold. The Shadow's hand didn't jump. It simply wasn't there anymore. Above Alara, space twisted. A black seam ripped open in the fabric of the void. The Leviathan emerged first, a slab of absolute darkness. Then the Behemoth. Then 5 more. They appeared in staggered, silent intervals, masked by the planet's own electromagnetic scream. Krail scanners registered anomalies, then scrambled, fed false echoes. The Krail fleet, 17 vessels in a dominant cross pattern, hesitated. Aboard the flagship Vordok, Overcommander Draxus leaned forward in his command rig. Unknown contacts. No identifiers. No emissions. A phantom fleet, his subordinate hissed. Draxus's mandibles clicked. Phantoms did not carry rail cannons. 12 human ships now held the high ground. Silent. Unmoving. A message had been sent. The Krail just hadn't decoded it yet. Then, below the clouds, the first drop pod streaked across the sky like a falling star. It struck the ice with a sound like the world cracking open. The first Krail cruiser didn't have time to scream. A rail slug from the Colossus impacted its primary spine, triggering a chain reaction that tore it into 3 spinning pieces of scrap. The human fleet didn't attack in waves. They executed with surgical, silent precision. The Juggernaut disabled a frigate's drives. The Behemoth speared a carrier shield core. Plasma containment failed. A green sun bloomed and died. Chaos erupted across the Krail line. Jax's pod hit first. The hatch blew. He emerged, rifle up, scanning. 3 Krail patrol units near a mass grave. He moved. A silent shot to the first one's cranial ridge. The second fell to a combat knife through an armor seam. The third died to a grenade it never saw thrown. More pods landed. Marines spilled out, a tide of control violence. They didn't shout. They were the shout. They cut through Krail squads of methodical brutality, securing corridors, creating perimeters. Jax pushed toward a collapsed archway, a tunnel entrance he remembered. The symbols above it were scarred but familiar. This was the door they brought him through as a boy. From the rubble, a figure emerged. An Ellerin elder, for singed, one tusk broken. He stared at the armored human, then at the face revealed when Jax removed his helmet. The elder's eyes widened. Jack's son. The name was fractured by time and accent. Jax nodded. You saved me. Now we return the favor. A Krail gunship screamed overhead, weapons charging. Jax shoved the elder behind cover. Take them to the fallback point. Marine pulses drove the ship higher. Then, from orbit, a single, precise lance of light vaporized it. Underground, the fight turned close and desperate. Jax's squad fought through a collapsing atrium. There, pinned under a girder, he found her, the Ellerin female who had given him his first warm meal in months. Her gaze met his, and 3 decades vanished. Medic to my position, Jax called. Heaving the beam aside with groan of metal and effort. When the Krail reinforcements tried to flank from orbit, they found nothing. The human destroyers had already moved. Using Alara's moon as a shield, they struck from the Krail's blind spot. The Leviathan and Behemoth ripped their flank apart. It wasn't a battle. It was a dismantling. A desperate, wideband transmission crackled from a Vordok. This is Overcommander Draxus. We disengage. We acknowledge your orbital control. We invoke Galactic Accord Article 17. Grant us withdrawal. The conflict is over. On the Leviathan, the message played. Commander Rook leaned toward the mic, his voice cold and clear. 30 years ago, the Ellerin showed us mercy when the universe offered none. We do not forget. He paused. Engage. The final Krail resistance was erased not with spectacle, but with stark, brutal efficiency. On the ground, Jack stood in the secured extraction zone. He knelt before the one-eyed Ellerin female, now resting on a stretcher. "You gave me life when I had none," he said, his voice thick. "Thank you." He bowed his head. Around him, Marines removed their helmets. The Ellerins watched, some weeping, some making slow, spiraling signs in the snow, a glyph for gratitude reborn. In orbit, Rook gave the final order. Begin extraction, then form the blockade. The human fleet, their task complete, began to peel away, leaving only silence and a shielded sky. From the surface, Jax watched the last ship vanish. Sergeant Holt stood beside him. "Think they got the message?" Jax watched the Ellerins tending to their wounded. Beginning again. "Yeah, they got it." The sky over Alara was quiet. Not with peace, but with a promise kept. A line had been held. A debt had been paid. And the galaxy would remember. Hey, thanks for watching until the end. If this story of promise kept resonating with you, do me a huge favor. Smash that like button. It genuinely helps the channel Winds of Thought share more tales like this. And I'm genuinely curious. What's one act of kindness you've never forgotten? Let me know in the comments.